Does mass resistance now seem possible? It very well should. This is by Gary Bennett on Out of Mind 2. Martin Luther King Jr. said we must learn that passively to accept an unjust system is to cooperate with that system and thereby to become a participant in its evil. Amazing things are happening today, but still few are paying attention. This is a travesty because the importance of any and all resistance to the state, any state, if embraced, can only lead to a freer world. This country and the world have fallen into slavery voluntarily, therefore have accepted the status quo that is said serfdom instead of clinging to and supporting all manner of dissent as necessary for the survival of man. This truth is avoided by most in order to supposedly get along with conflict, but the conflict only grows in this environment of passivity. When the conflict grows due to the masses' lack of courage and indifference, the way is cleared for the destruction of freedom. At this stage of the game, those who have chosen to rule are winning in the effort to own and control the earth, but that could change overnight. The China model that was supported, funded, and built by the US and Western nations and has been emulated by the West these past few years is beginning to crumble. This may be the most important event taking place in our world today, but how many are paying attention? How many are being fooled and brainwashed to ignore or condemn instead of applaud the efforts by the Chinese citizens who are showing much more courage under extreme threat than this apathetic American citizenry has even considered? Remember the lockdown, imprisonment here and there around the world. Remember the loss of the ability to sustain yourselves and your families. Remember the oxygen-stealing masks and the distancing from loved ones, friends, and neighbors. Remember the mandates concerning the most important aspects of life. Remember the shutdown of the economy and the following criminal theft that is inflation. Remember the massive push to inject state force bioweapons poison into all. Remember the psychological terror that was perpetrated by the state for fraudulent pandemics that never existed. And remember all the lies, propaganda, deaths that have been due to the toxic poison purposely foisted on this and other populations. Remember all this and more, and never forget. I have never thought that protest in and of itself was a way to gain freedom, because in essence, protest is normally a way to beg your master for relief instead of taking and keeping your freedom. With that said, much of the Chinese population of normal working people are out en masse attempting to force out the ruling class in order to gain their liberty from such mass oppression. Consider that the political enforcement arms of that government are evil and much more dangerous to the citizenry than its government in this country, at least for the time being. Yet those brave people are taking great risk to stop the insanity that is the state, while the US population sits on their arses doing little or nothing to help themselves. Full and total support, and loudly I might add, should be given to these brave people in China who are attempting to upend the ruling communist system built mostly by the same United States that has abused its people in much the same manner. In fact, most of the West has lauded Chinese rulers for their terroristic lockdowns and claimed it should be the model of the world during the fake manufactured COVID scam that was used to subdue the world. Consider the totalitarian regimes in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Canada, the UK, the US, and most of the rest of the planet, who brutalize their own citizens simply to gain power and control over them. Mainstream media ignoring all protests in Europe and other parts of the world while covering up the true intent that was a fight for freedom and individual sovereignty. All dissent has been purposely marginalized, hidden, covered up, lied about, misrepresented, in order to stifle any resistance in their own countries. But now the rulers, are scared, and it is the Chinese people who have instilled that fear in the claimed masters, the powerful ruling elite of China and the governments everywhere. This is a courageous achievement that should be lauded and copied in order to bring much more fear to the political class of monsters that reside in the protected halls of governments everywhere. The courage and passion of resistance lives and breathes today in China, and all should not only pay attention, but should also oust their own governments as well. What's going on in China today concerning its people's desire to stop this outrageous tyranny is, in my opinion, the most important event to date concerning the brutal takeover by everywhere government on earth of its own people. The vast importance of this mass resistance is incalculable and deserves to be accepted and discussed openly, not hidden by the state's paws in the CIA-controlled media. The China model is desired by all other states and should be exposed. China has built the largest and most advanced surveillance state in history, and there is only one reason for such an atrocious system as this. It's to capture and finally control every single individual in society in that country. The world rulers are watching closely because they all desire that same system. The West is following China in that it wants to mirror the tyranny there by claiming that power and control leads to the safety of the masses. This is an absurd lie, of course, but this is the essence of the plot to gain total control. How many have been brutalized due to the state efforts to lock down and imprison their populations? How many have succumbed to the psychological and mental torture created and implemented by the state? How many have died due to totalitarian response to a planned fake emergency? How many have been done away with? How many lost all connection with their families and friends? How many are starving or are on the cusp of losing all they have gained? How many more will die this winter due to the evil governing systems that have intentionally orchestrated food and energy shortages around the world? How many people will be finished off when the monetary system is completely taken over, cash is eliminated, and all transactions are controlled by the technocrats? We have a great opportunity here to see what mass resistance can accomplish. The Chinese people, not their government, should be supported, their efforts should be acknowledged, and their plight should be shouted from the rooftops so that others can see why dissent is so vital to freedom. The powerful and running scared, and they should know the full terror of fear so that they so consciously and callously inflicted on the rest of us. They deserve nothing less. The opportunity before us is obvious. Shun this heinous government and all its supporters. Do not comply, do not succumb to orders and mandates, do not allow any more restrictions, and gain the courage to fight back against evil state instead of voting for and begging those tyrants lording over you for relief. Those who profess, as Frederick Douglass said, those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. This is what Frederick Douglass said. And this is on Out of Minds 2 by Gary Bennett. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.